Good evening to everyone. I am Dieter Ancheta from BSED English 31, and for tonight, the topic that I will discuss is about poetry, the structure of poetry, and the forms of poetry. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, what is poetry? There are many definitions of poetry by different poets. According to Edgar Allan Poe, I would define in brief the poetry of words as the rhythmical creation of beauty. Its sole arbiter is taste. With the intellect or with the conscience, it has only collateral relations. Unless incidentally, it has no concern whatever either with duty or with truth. And according to Mary Oliver, poetry isn't a profession, it's a way of life. It's an empty basket. You put your life into it and make something out of that. And for the another definition of poetry by Salvatore Quasimodo, poetry is the revelation of a feeling that the poet believes to be interior and personal, which the reader recognizes as his own. And for my interpretation, or for my definition, um, poetry is a type of literature that describes a scene or tells a story in a concentrated way. So, through this, we can express our thoughts, feelings, ideas, and etc. in a figurative way. So, now let's proceed to the structure of poetry, which contains stanza, rhyme, meter, and rhythm. So, what is structure? So, it is a overall organizations of lines and conventional patterns of sound. So, first, we have stanza. We all know that stanza is a series of lines that group together and separated by an empty line to other stanzas. So, one way to identify the number of stanzas is to count the number of lines. So, I have an example here which is entitled A Bird Came Down the Walk. So, as you can see, it is separated by two columns. So, each column is what we call stanza. So, as they said, to identify the number of stanzas is to count the number of lines. So, basically, each column we have four lines. One, two, three, four. So basically, the name of this stanza is quatrain. So how did I say that this stanza is a quatrain? To identify what kind of stanza it is, I provided a list here. So you just need to count the number of lines. So if it has two lines, it is what we call couplet. 3 lines per tercet, 4 lines per quatrain, 5 lines for cinquain, 6 lines for sestet, 7 lines for septet, and 8 lines for octave. So now let's proceed to the rhyme. One reason why we use rhyme is to have a pleasure, because through rhyme, the words can be pleasing to our ear, and it is considered as a musical element in the poem. And aside from that, it makes the poem easier to memorize in the reader's mind. So, I have an example here which is roses are red, violets are blue, I'm out of my head with thinking of you. To identify the rhyming pattern of this example is you just need to pay attention with the last word of each line. So, for example, in the first line we have red, and in third line we have head. So, red, head. So, as you can see, they are almost similar. They are similar sounds when it comes in pronunciation. So, same as with blue and you. So, the rhyming pattern, it depends to the poet on um, how he organized it. For example, Mr. Agustin is the poet. So if he wants to put a rhyming pattern with BBAA or AABB, wala siya BB. Ay, just kidding. So it is all it is it is all depends on the poet on how they want to um, put the rhyming pattern together. For the further explanation, let's identify the rhyming pattern of this another example. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. So, basically, while you pronouncing the um, word, you will get notice the similar sound of each line. So in the first line and second line, they are similar in their last word, which is the star and R. So let's mark this as A and A. So in third line and fourth line, they are also the same pronunciation or similar sounds in pronunciation, which is the high and sky. So let's mark this as B and B. So in fifth line and sixth line, they are also the same with the last part, which is the star and R. So let's mark this as A and A. So basically, the pattern of this twinkle twinkle little star, the rhyming pattern is AA, BB, AA. So now let's proceed to the next. Under the structure of poetry, we have meter. So as a reader, knowing about meter helps you to understand how a poem is out together. And if you want to write a poetry, knowing meter will make you better poet. So what do we mean by meter? Meter measure lines of poetry based on stressed and unstressed syllable. When we are pronouncing a word, we're putting a stress in a certain part. For example, in the word apple, we're putting a stress in the up part. That is why we pronounce it apple, not apple. In poetry, a unit of stressed and unstressed syllables is called a foot. Now let's see this line of William Shakespeare. No longer mourn for me when I am dead. And the rhythm is ba 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 ba. And that's why we read it like this. No longer mourn for me when I am dead. So the type of foot that Shakespeare used here is called iamb or iambic meter. The iambic meter has an unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable. So again, it is a unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable. So the rhythm is baba. So I have two example here. So we pronounce this word as a above, support, above, support. So as you notice, we're putting stress in the second syllable of the word. So aside from iambic foot, we also have trochee. So this is the opposite of an iambic foot. So the rhythm is baba. So like the word poet and father. So as you can see, we're putting a stress in the first syllable of the word. Unlike in iambic foot, we're putting a stress in the last part, in the last syllable of a word. Next is anapest. So this is similar in the iambic foot because we're putting stress in the last syllable of the word. But in iambic foot is for two syllable and the anapest is for three syllables word. So this sounds like ba ba ba. So I have an example here which is the underneath 17. So in anapest, we're also putting the stress in the last syllable word. So last is dactyl foot. This is the opposite of an anapest. So the rhythm is ba ba ba. So like in trochee, we're putting a stress in the first syllable of the word. But this time, the word is three syllables. So I have an example here. Elephant. Elephant. So Again, we have four types of foot, which is the iambic foot, the trochee foot, the anapest foot, and the last one is dactyl foot. If you're finding a meter in poetry, aside from looking what kind of foot, we also need count the feet in every line. So 1 foot is equal to monometer. So monometer means there are only 2 syllables in each line, but these are very rare in a poetry because the poetry always have 2 feet or is equal to diameter. So 3 is trimeter, 4 is tetrameter, 5 is pentameter, 6 is hexameter, 7 heptameter, and 8 feet is octameter. For the further explanation, if there are 2 feet per line, it is called diameter. So here's a sentence in trochaic diameter. So, eat your dinner. So by the way, I'm sorry for the typographical error. So again, here's the sentence. Eat your dinner. So always remember there are 2 syllables in 1 foot. So that is why is it diameter, and is it trochaic because the first part, the stress is in the first syllable of the foot. So next is trimeter. So it has 3 feet per line. So here's the sample sentence in a form of iambic trimeter. I eat a bread and cheese. So if we count it, I eat a bread and cheese. So we have 6 syllables. So again, there are 2 syllables in 1 foot. So we have a total of 3 foot or 3 feet. So that is why we called it trimeter. Then iambic because the stress is in the second syllable of a foot. So this is just the same process with the others. So all you need to do is just count the syllables and identify the kind of foot. So that is the end of my report, and I would like to share this quotation. According to Samuel Taylor Coleridge, poetry, the best words in the best orders. So that's it. Thank you for listening and mabuhay.